Thanks everyone for watching this video. I am here with Elizabeth Denham Thompson, who is the creator of Web of Care, which is going to be our new congregational care program here at Countryside. And so in case you are not able to attend an info session in person, we wanted to provide you with an opportunity to learn more about the Web of Care program and to consider becoming a coordinator in registering for our training, which will be on September 13th and 14th this fall. So, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me today. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself before we dive into Web of Care?
Sure. So I'm Elizabeth Denham Thompson, as Sarah said. I am an ordained minister. I'm a pastoral counselor, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I do consulting work with clergy and congregations of all different stripes and varieties and denominations, and have been doing that for about 30 years. So I am um, delighted to be able to have this opportunity to be with y'all. I come from a long line of ministers and have been involved in congregations my entire life in one way, shape, or form. And my daughter affectionately calls us the God Mafia because of how many ministers are in the family. But what that means is that I've understood congregations from a both as a beautiful, connecting, enriching community, and sometimes they're toxic or fragmented or just don't function very well. And um, so the Web of Care came out of that background into how to strengthen congregational life, people's lives with each other, really feel connected. And with I realize I'm launching into why Web of Care,
Mhm.
but the especially with COVID and some of the other things, there's more isolation that is happening. There's more tension and conflict that can be there. And so I really do want to see how do we work together? How do we strengthen instead of have more divisive relations in the world? And church is a beautiful place to do that.
Yeah, it
So
sure is.
that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. No, that's perfect. And so when you designed Web of Care and created it, what brought that about and what was missing in the congregation you were involved with at that time?
So, so it actually comes out of two or three experiences. One is that there was a congregation I was involved with that actually did have a program like this. And so I learned firsthand about that type of connection and how wonderful it was to have. Uh, we didn't live near family, and so how wonderful it was to have like grandparents in the congregation who sent birthday cards to my kids, and that there was this caring that went, this flow of contact and connection that happened. And so then we moved across country and got involved in a different congregation, and that wasn't there. And there were just several pieces that just it what didn't mean that they weren't a lovely congregation. It didn't mean that they didn't have some things that they cared about each other and had good programs and good. I mean, it was a healthy congregation, but there just there was less connective tissue among the members than in the congregation previously that we'd been involved with. And so it was out of that that I began looking at, well, how do we replicate that? How can we do this? And realized that there wasn't really training material out there. There wasn't a structure for that to happen. There are some structures that are out there. Stephen Ministry is an example, which is an excellent program, but it's pretty much this is the box that it fits in. And
Mhm.
if you want a program that fits within that, it's great. But if you want to do something more broadly, especially a full congregational interweaving care program, there just wasn't anything out there. So my co-author and I began conversations with specifically UCC and also UU congregations and the ministers and the conference leaders to say, what do we need? How do we need to structure something? And so the Web of Care came out of that, which was a way to both provide a training program that has a progressive theology behind it
Mhm.
and broadens what that box is and how do we care for each other, and thinks of it in terms of a strength based. So we're not just caring for somebody who's needy or in need at this point, but there's a full life cycle. There's a full way of relating to people. So their birthday or going to a game together or going out for coffee, or so that the relationships are built so that when something significant may happen, good or bad, as we may say it, or that's more joyous rather than sad, or painful, the relationship is there that can hold that,
Mhm.
that can, and somebody is more likely to share that. And so one of the people who helped found it at one of the congregations talked about realizing that there was a member of the church he hadn't seen in a while. And he was like, so he reached out to him to say, just checking in, wondered, I hadn't seen you at church lately. And the guy that he was reaching out to kind of stopped and said, yeah, I haven't been there for a couple of years. And he was like, oh, I guess I didn't realize it was that long. Well, I hope people have been checking in on you and you've have it. And the guy stopped again and went, you're the first person who has contacted me in 2 years.
Mm. Wow.
So, and this was somebody who was not, really actively involved, but he was there, once or twice a month and, went to different events. And he kind of just drifted off the edge and nobody knew.
Mm.
So that's part of what this is about in terms of a whole congregation is um, as tenuous as the web may be, as people get to the edges, we still want them connected. And
Mhm.
so what does that look like? And how do we do that? Because the people everybody knows and loves are going to be known and loved.
Mhm.
It's the ones who aren't, or who are in certain pockets of a community that are going to tend to be less noticed if something is going on. So it's to build that strength.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So thinking about, someone's watching this and feeling like they might consider becoming a coordinator, which is what we
Mhm.
call folks who will be helping to care for others. What characteristics, or, I kind of like to use the language of spiritual gifts and graces, would a person need or should they possess to become a coordinator?
It's a great question. And the reality is we need all types because there are all types of people in the congregation. So you need people who can reach all those different types. So if somebody's an introvert or somebody's an extrovert, great. We need both of those. Um, it does need to be somebody who is open to having conversations with 10 to 12, 15, different family units, or households, which may be one person, a household may be one person, or it may be five,
Mm-hmm.
or it may even be an intergenerational household, but, who are willing to reach out and go, how are you doing? What's happening? Saw you at church, or I didn't see you at church, or, I saw you on Facebook, or, um, you know, so it's, you need to be willing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Now, there isn't, one of the things that's beautiful about Web of Care, as I see it, is that there's not a single way that you do that. So this is not a calling ministry. This is not a send letters ministry. This is not it's however you are most comfortable making connection with people is how this works. and you work with the people that are in your group to say, how do you want me to contact you? So is it text message? Is it a phone call? Is it let's go have coffee? What works is the way we want to do it. And there may be months you end up not having a contact with somebody for
Mhm.
a variety of reasons. But so you need somebody who's willing to reach out, but you can do it in a way that makes sense for you.
Mhm.
Writing a note, making a phone call, texting, whatever, Facebook, whatever it may be. Um, you need somebody who's going to be willing to commit the time, because this ministry only works if there's a commitment to actually contacting your people, knowing that hopefully monthly, but there are going to be months that your life goes bonkers. And so that's not going to be the month you can do it. But basically committing that I'm going to routinely be contacting my people to see how they're doing.
Mhm.
You're not trying to form them into their own small group. You're not trying to build a classroom activity thing with that group.
Mhm.
It's just, these are the list of names. These are the people that I'm going to reach out to on a regular basis. And I'm going to attend regular Web of Care meetings with the other coordinators to um, to share, debrief, and continue to receive resources and accountability
Mhm.
on how we're doing this work, and to bearing questions and what's going on. Um, so there's not a particular type other than a willingness to reach out to people, that you care for people. The third thing, though, that I would say is that you're there to listen.
Mm.
You're not there to fix. You're not there to, if they have problems with something that's going on at the church, you're not there to fix or correct their thinking about what it is. You're not there to give advice. You're there to build a relationship. Once the relationship is there, then those other things may happen. But the primary goal is relationship that says, this church community cares about you, period.
Yeah, wonderful. Um, that's exactly what we're hoping for. And I think we have a strong basis and can only grow into even more care for our
Good,
folks with Web
good.
of Care. And so, given what you described, how long would you say, or how much time would you say would be required to be a coordinator each month?
So on a monthly basis, what you're going to be doing as a regular coordinator, is contacting your people and attending the meeting, where a debriefing connection meeting with the other Web of Care coordinators. So the meeting will be 2.5 hours, something like that.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that would be once a month. Then how you contact your people really depends on you. We're back to that kind of thing. But so there may be some people that you see at church and you go, hey, how are you doing? Kind of, or whatever. Um, but if you go out for coffee, that may be an hour with that same
Mhm.
person,
Mhm.
So, but I would think, um, on average, if you broke it down to week, about 2 hours a week.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds really doable. And we'll do our best here on the church side to make sure that we don't ask too much of people, because we want this to be
Uh,
sustainable.
we want it to be sustainable. And what I have found, and you may be asking me that later, but what I found is that these connections then begin to, eh, they drive themselves, because now you have this relationship. So
Hmm.
you want to do some checking in with people. Um, Although there may be people on your group that you don't know,
Hmm.
which is part of the purpose of this, is there are going to be some people that you realize none of the coordinators really know. And so, and you may call and leave a message and you never get a phone call back. They'll call and leave a message, nobody get. You send an email, you never get a message. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's another piece that sometimes can be frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, we're wanting to contact you. Whether you ever contact us back is secondary.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make sure you know we care about you. So anyway, so
Sure.
5 to 8 hours.
Sure. Okay. And so, I mean, certainly, like you just described, we're reaching out on behalf of the church. Like that's part of we're volunteering to do this because it's a ministry of the congregation. But I'm sure that there are benefits to the coordinators and people find it really rewarding. Can you share any of the stories you've heard or just kind of what those benefits have been for people who have been Web of Care coordinators?
Yeah, I think some of it is around relationships that get formed, and because there's an intentionality about it, you start realizing that the just, hey, how are you doing on Sunday morning? That's not deep enough. And
Mm-hmm.
so you actually do want to go a little bit deeper and you start finding more about what's going on with people. That there's the the strength of the church strengthens because there's a more relationship. One congregation who's about the size of Countryside, the comment was that they realized there were about 80 people who had been kind of on the edges and were drifting off, that because of Web of Care came, really, they were like, oh, this community really does care.
Mm-hmm.
They really do want. And so they started kind of engaging in the congregation. So, so the congregation experienced that, but it was also, that was because a coordinator had that connection and was
Mm-hmm.
doing that. Um, I think there is a sense of, I'm for a coordinator, that sense of there is well-being and I'm part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that look like? And I'm part of a group that is focused on that. And so there are connections that are made among Web of Care coordinators among themselves. There's like, I didn't really know this person. I didn't know that person, even if and so that time of sharing strengthens it as well. One of the other pieces of the Web of Care is that everybody gets a Web of Care coordinator. So even if I'm a coordinator, that doesn't mean, okay, I'm fine. Nobody needs to take care of me and my family.
Mm-hmm.
It's no, we are in somebody else's Web of Care. We're in somebody else's care group. The staff, the ministers, are in Web of Care groups. Everybody needs somebody to reach out and say, hey, how are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on in your life? I care about you. And so one of the other pieces is, even as a coordinator, I experience that from someone else, not just I'm giving it to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a layered web that gets built. Yeah.
Awesome. And so my final question is just around lead coordinators, which is what we're calling the folks that help to kind of coordinate the coordinators and will be working especially closely with me as a minister and helping maybe make some referrals um, up through the chain
Mm-hmm.
if needed
Mm-hmm.
to myself and Jenny as a senior pastor. What would you say are some of the other differences between the lead coordinators and the role of the coordinator?
Yeah. The lead coordinators are critical because they're the ones who are putting this program together. I mean, you're obviously there as staff, as ministers who are, as that are supporting it, and even right now, doing part of the preliminary embedding of this. But the lead coordinators are the ones who keep it going. They're the ones so they'll be involved in helping go through all of the names of the households and be working with the coordinators who gets assigned which people. What does that look like? When new uh, people join the congregation, then who do they get assigned to? Who's going to be their coordinator that will be reaching out for new people that are coming in? They're going to be monitoring the input and what the concerns are of the other coordinators. Are there additional educational components that need to happen? So do we bring in, we're beginning to hear a lot of concerns about teenagers. So maybe we need to bring in somebody who can help us understand what's happening now in the landscape of teenagers after COVID and with all blah, blah, blah. So,
Mhm.
because some of us feel very far removed from that, more so than others. Or it could be around, who knows what the
Mhm.
different things are, but it's like, what are we hearing? What do we need? So they'll begin planning part of that. They'll be part of the ones who will be doing communication, helping set up meetings. So there's a hub component for them that's different. Um, some of them will have their own people that they're checking into.
Mhm.
Um, so they may be doing double duty as not just coordinating the program, but they'll
Mhm.
also have people that they're checking in. Usually it's a smaller number. Sometimes it's the other coordinators that they're, helping check in on. That's their people. But so that does take more time, and it takes a different type of an additional kind of organizational skill, thinking about what that means, but really wanting communication, connection, organization, to keep things moving.
Okay.
And let me say one other thing, even though you and Jenny will certainly be involved with this and need to be, and it's critical that both lay and clergy are working together in this. One of the things about Web of Care is this is not a program or a ministry that is dependent upon a minister. So if the idea is that this becomes a congregational ministry,
Mm. Mhm.
and so no matter who the minister is, no matter what change may happen, this program continues to care for the congregation. So who the lead coordinators are and how they understand that. So it's not, oh, well, Sarah's here now, but what happens when she leaves? Or
Mhm.
it's like, no, we're committing to this as this is going to happen. This is who we are now.
That's great. That's great. What a great last word. This is who we are now. I love it. Um, well, I'm sure that, I mean, I can think of a lot more questions to ask you, and I'm sure as people watch this, they will have more questions, but we just want this to kind of get people intrigued and interested in considering Web of Care to become a volunteer coordinator. And so thank you so much. And
You're welcome. I look forward to being with you in September. I'm
yeah, I'm so
excited about
excited
that.
for you to come and train us, and we'll get your expert training wisdom and be happy to have you here. So thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you.